WWT presents Experts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of WWT Experts. I'm your host, Matthew Coble. So many civilian agencies are turning to the cloud today to drive innovation and better deliver on their missions. However, the path to cloud is often challenging for these agencies due to centralized procurement processes and the need to navigate what can be a kind of a complex authority to operate process. So today we'll be talking to two WWT experts about how federal civilian agencies can overcome roadblocks, optimize their cloud resources, and best align their cloud strategies with their mission objectives. So I've got two folks with us. First up, Brandon Bulldis is Engineering Director for our Federal Civilian Agency business. He started his career as a communications tech in the United States Air Force and is now a seasoned IT professional with over 20 years of experience. He's got a passion for helping organizations harness the power of technology, and he has guided clients in both the public and private sectors to achieve their business goals and outcomes. Brandon is dedicated to educating others and staying ahead in the ever-evolving world of technology, and especially kind of the security space, the cloud space, some of the things we're going to talk about today. Also with us is Ryan Friel, Principal Solution Architect for WWT's Federal Civilian business. Ryan has over 20 years of experience in the technology industry and explores topics like cloud, AI, agile product management, and much more. Prior to joining us, Ryan built and led a cloud consulting practice at a well-known systems integrator, and now he spends his time providing technical leadership to our federal civilian clients. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah,
thank you for having us.
Sure thing. Let's jump in. So what is driving cloud adoption in federal civilian agencies, and how has this been evolving over the last several years?
Yeah, great question. I'll take this first one, Ryan.
Sure.
So there's a number of reasons why the federal agencies have had to look at cloud. And so one of them is around leveraging or evaluating some of the or emerging technologies, some of the innovative types of technologies that are coming out, whether it's AI, whether it's, just a different way of doing what they've been doing. A big part of what they've been looking at is from a cost management and optimization, trying to look at, changing how the money they're spending is colored. So moving it from a CapEx to an OpEx, that's been a huge push to move to the cloud. And then another aspect of that is around, kind of said innovation, but driving that digital transformation, trying to find ways to be a little bit more effective with citizen experiences, to drive better experiences for whatever that agency's mission, goals, objectives are, and be able to drive that and leverage some of those newer technologies.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Brandon. In addition to those points you mentioned, I just wanted to contribute a few more themes to the cloud adoption journey of federal civilian agencies. So the first thing that's really driving adoption recently has been the push for Gen AI and driving insights from customers' data. That's really served as a catalyst for cloud adoption. Other themes that I've seen is cloud providers moving from an infrastructure as a service focus to more platform and software as a service capabilities. And what that is doing is lowering the barrier of entry for talent and for resources to start taking advantage of those capabilities in cloud.
Well, so what challenges do agencies face when it comes to centralized cloud procurement and visibility?
Yeah, well, I think you just hit on one of them. There is a lack of visibility across what they have from a cloud and integration. What's happened for a lot of the agencies, whether the OCIO, the central procurement shop, has procured the cloud or gotten those contracts, or where the business units have done, they don't always know. They can't always see how and where the different CSPs are being leveraged, different software as the SaaS solutions are being leveraged. So a lot of it is a lack of visibility, understanding where they've made those investments. The other part is the complexity of kind of these multi-cloud environments. There is not a one-size-fits-all CSP, private, hybrid, all that. It's complex. And so trying to navigate that through different contract vehicles through different businesses owning it, or business units within the agencies own it, different mission agencies owning it, different objectives with it. That level of complexity has proven very difficult, particularly from a procurement perspective, which leads to the other thing that they're trying to overcome is some of those organizational silos, which is a common theme that I think a lot of the agencies are getting better about starting to break down those silos as they move to next gen, as they move to innovative technologies. But they still have those silos, or they have sub-agencies within a cabinet agency that it has their own procurement path. So it becomes real difficult when you start talking big tenants for one agency as it goes across.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in addition to what Brandon mentioned, there's another challenge, which is a resource challenge within the agency. There's very often a very small group within an agency responsible for central cloud ownership, policies, governance, et cetera. And what this really does is essentially consolidating procurement is taking ownership of what were project-based cloud procurements and moving that to more of a cloud shared services model or a cloud center of excellence model, where you're not only centralizing procurement, but the alignment with mission priorities, with governance policies, and driving economies of scale across these projects and gaining greater discounts from those CSPs. So there's a big resource challenge that the agencies face in internalizing this function.
Well, Jen, what role are cloud brokers playing in all of this, and how are agencies evolving their cloud brokerage models?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Brandon. So this is a conversation I have very often with our agencies. Cloud brokers have traditionally played a role in, one, consolidating acquisition of cloud across multiple CSPs and multiple, projects. So the initial goal of this is one, driving economies of scale to get greater discounts from the CSPs, and two, gain some type of central visibility from at least a billing standpoint to understand who's spending what, where, right, within the agency. And this model is evolving, right, as customers are evolving their cloud maturity. So beyond just a billing perspective, they're now looking for a mission perspective. And what this means is having a unified data tagging strategy across the agency to relate cloud spend and cloud resources to actual mission objectives and projects. So they're understanding how those projects contribute to mission value and success criteria. And the next piece of this they're looking to evolve is FinOps, right? They're looking for these cloud brokers to provide them with a visualization of what are my opportunities to drive resource savings. Things like getting rid of unused resources, right-sizing infrastructure, taking advantage of reserved instances and savings plans, and really driving those savings opportunities into the DevOps process so they can actually be realized from a hard dollar standpoint. The other thing they're looking to do is to evolve these cloud brokerage functions into the professional services realm. So beyond FinOps, how can a cloud brokerage be involved in the intake of requirements for a new project? How can they be involved in understanding migration and the assessment around that, technical and business readiness, general architectural best practices and support, and even managing cloud environments for the customer into which they can put their workloads and their data. So these are the areas they're looking to evolve functions within the cloud brokerage over time as the agencies mature.
Mm-hmm.
I think just to add to that a little bit more simply, from my standpoint, cloud was a technology. This whole concept of cloud technologies coupled together, the data center folks were trying to figure out how to wrap their head around, while bean counters figured it out really quickly. So it's a lot of accounting that goes along with this. There's a lot of, obviously what Ryan just outlined and what he just walked through. And then you have to couple that with the technology. And it's been, particularly within the federal civilian agencies, it's been a little while to figure out how to get the technologists to speak to the accounting side of the house, which is, there's always a barrier in language between the two. And so that's been a little bit of some of that slow speed of getting there, and where the cloud brokers have both been good and then also kind of I don't say taken advantage, but kind of been able to get things to a place that isn't always in the ideal place for a federal agency as they've moved to the cloud.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about the authority to operate, or ATO process. How are agencies approaching that? Are there ways to streamline that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I want to start off by saying that ATO is a major challenge that we hear from just about every customer. And when I say ATO, this could also mean sort of the FSMA RMF process as well. And some agencies even have their own specific ATO process. Mm-hmm. But the best way for agencies to streamline this ATO approach is to move from a traditional point-in-time process, which we're used to with methods like FedRAMP, et cetera, to a continuous ATO model. So in this continuous ATO approach, it's really designed to reduce ATO costs, to improve or accelerate the time to value, so moving that application that the agency has developed or the contractors developed, or a third-party ISV they're looking to implement into production more quickly. And then it's also designed to enhance security. So rather than point-in-time security sort of risk assessment, we're talking about continuous risk management and security. So the general idea of continuous ATO is really about a DevSecOps approach, right? And that team is allowed to continuously develop and assess and deploy software at third-party ISVs that meet a certain risk tolerance laid out by a NIST standard, FSMA standard, et cetera, within a system authorization boundary, right? So there's a common ATO boundary into which there can be multiple tenants, multiple applications that are inheriting these controls, and this environment is being continuously assessed and monitored, and security is being actively managed, and incident response is immediate. So the first step for agencies to take in this continuous ATO model is really to educate the mission stakeholders on this continuous ATO approach, and gaining support for that within the agency. A good peer example that I always give to my agency customers is to look at the DoD party bus example. And what happened with that DoD approach is it, involved continuous ATO framework, and they established this common boundary for their DevSecOps pipeline. So all the software that is developed, let's say for the Air Force, for example, is going through this pipeline. And because it's in this common boundary, which has these continuous monitoring and controls, they're able to continuously iterate new features into production. And this allows better time to mission and better security, mm-hmm. so that they can gain a competitive advantage in their mission. Mm-hmm. And the next step I really kind of recommend, in addition to that, is to form a center of excellence with an ATO focus. So this involves multiple stakeholders across the mission to ensure that this ATO process is not just technology focused, but mission focused. So this is about people, process, and technology, and there are a number of changes that are involved in that process. And a good first step as well is sort of taking a look at all of the systems within the mission and saying, where are there logical groupings of these systems? For example, one of our customers has a huge collaboration system with many components. How do we put all of those components on premise and in cloud into a common system boundary with a standardized DevSecOps pipeline and tooling so that we can continuously iterate and continuously deploy to production? So this is the modern way of thinking when it comes to streamlining the ATO process, and we're starting to see our customers embrace this thinking.
Mm-hmm. Only thing I want to double tap on this is one of the keys in these processes that Ryan just outlined is separating out that ATO process from the technology, having it defined and understanding what's your ATO process, how are you going to handle that, and then start bringing the technology into it. Often they've approached it where it's been, we're going to do the ATO for this technology, and they hadn't separated it. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot more momentum.
Mm-hmm. Well, the idea of mission has come up several times already, and I know that all of these federal agencies are really focused on their mission objectives. I'm curious how you're seeing them starting to weave their cloud strategy, with those mission objectives, those mission outcomes, to make sure that there's good alignment.
Yeah. So one of the things that the federal agencies should be trying to look at when they're trying to align their mission objectives to the cloud and all that is starting with trying to change that culture, trying to foster that culture, that change within the siloed organizations, really focus on the people part and then start to worry about or start to bring in the process, because you got to get folks to adopt it. You got to get folks to buy into it. You got to get the different sub-agencies, the different mission business units, all that to really lean into these Cloud Center of Excellence, to lean into leveraging it. The other thing that they really should be looking at, and it's a huge benefit to leveraging cloud, is evaluating, leveraging it for emerging technology trends. I talked about that at the beginning, but just, double click on what Ryan said earlier, whether it's AI solutions, whether it's Gen AI, whether it's natural language processing, whether it's whatever it is, things that enhance the services that they're trying to provide to their constituents, to their citizen services, both internal as well as external. Being able to leverage those things and using the cloud as that really quick acceleration on doing that. The other thing I think is really important is security. Really approaching this from the standpoint of a zero trust, approaching this from a standpoint of how do you can't move off the risk of your logo. They still have a responsibility to protect the citizen data that they are in charge of. Just because you put it in the cloud, you still have that responsibility. So approaching it with those cloud providers in a zero trust way, it is hugely beneficial in order to protect that data, to protect the mission, both internal and external.
Mm-hmm.
So aligning cloud strategies to mission objectives, this is an interesting one. What I always tell my customers is stop thinking about cloud as infrastructure. Start thinking about cloud as a product, right? And what I mean by that is if I take a product management mindset to cloud, I start with why, and then what, and then how. So starting with why is a really important thing, right? What are those mission objectives? What are those use cases? Let's start with that. Let's not start by building a cloud platform and hoping people will use it. Let's, and the glue there is really having that Cloud Center of Excellence. And that Cloud Center of Excellence acts as a liaison between the business side of the mission and the technology side of the mission, which is actually carrying out the cloud strategy. So I think, starting on the business side of things and then moving to the technology side is really the way to go. And having that product mindset is key to success.
This episode is brought to you by Google Cloud, specifically its Google Public Sector Division, which supports federal civilian agencies through digital transformation. Google Public Sector brings the magic of Google to the mission of government and education. With powerful technologies such as artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, and security offerings, decision makers can streamline processes and improve citizen services delivered by public sector organizations across all domains.
Well, I want to stick on that topic of a cloud center of excellence. So how are you advising our clients in this space to form and sort of maintain good centers of excellence around the topic of cloud?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're working with some of the agencies that we're working with today is having a real methodical approach. Not prolonging it, but trying to make sure that you're accounting for, various different things, starting with what is the objective and the goal of that Cloud Center of Excellence? Mm-hmm. Let's figure out what we're trying to solve, what you're trying to do, what are the initial objectives. You can add objectives later on, but let's start by defining that clearly. Getting the cross-functional team. I talked previously about some of the culture parts, but what is that cross-functional team that you're going to bring in to help drive it? Because it's not just the technology, it's that people, that process, and it's very different types of technology, different types of folks than you've seen in the traditional IT type of a place. Developing a governance framework, best practices around knowledge sharing and how do you train and enable. and those types of things. Training, development, enablement becomes a huge piece of this. So, you can have the best objectives, you can have the best cross-functional team, but if you don't actually build a adoption plan, you don't build an enablement plan, get it out there and drive that adoption out to your constituents, both internally and externally, it's not going to, take off from that standpoint. And then, obviously one of Ryan's favorite topics here is really understanding that FinOps model, right? And how do you integrate that FinOps into this? From that standpoint, and then from there start to, how do you add emerging technologies? How do you continue to foster innovation? But establishing a baseline and then get to the cool stuff after you get through the FinOps and all that aspect of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to add to what Brandon was saying, we at WWT have an accelerator program which we've developed. It really focuses on a number of things that Brandon was mentioning. And there's really two phases to get the ball moving. Well, the first is planning, and the second is establishing that CCOE. So in that planning phase, it is really about identifying who are the stakeholders, educating them on what a CCOE is about and the benefits, establishing a charter, if you will, which talks about what is the scope of the CCOE activities, what are some of the governance policies, et cetera. And then moving to the establishment phase of actually operationalizing that charter, right? Getting the regular meetings going. What should be the ongoing agenda? What is the roadmap of items that need to be addressed in the timeline with accountability across that CCOE, as well as the engineering team that's responsible for deploying those solutions. So we really focus on that planning and establishment phase so that the customer can get up and running in a number of months and get the ball moving on their cloud strategy and their cloud adoption.
Mm-hmm. Well, so whether it's kind of emerging from that cloud center of excellence or just a matter of kind of day-to-day operations from the technology team that's sort of focused on cloud, what advice do you have for agencies that are, working to kind of optimize their cloud environments on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so optimization typically starts on the financial side, just to be honest, right?
Yeah.
So when we have this cloud brokerage office, that cloud brokerage office is in most cases providing a billing perspective of cloud usage. So it's providing you with, who is spending money in cloud, what types of resources are they spending it on, and any data tagging that has been put into those resources, looking at how that relates to the mission. That FinOps is very basic, right? Basically providing a billing perspective, if you will, in the CBO function. And what they're looking to do is to, bring in some third-party tooling and also some CSP native services that visualize opportunities for the customer. So they visualize unused resources, right-sizing opportunities, reserved instances, et cetera, and have a radar of opportunities that the DevOps team can then act on to realize those savings. That's really the key, is moving from that billing perspective to this FinOps perspective. And the other key thing is, moving the FinOps process from a static view of just information to an integrated process. So taking those insights from the FinOps tool and integrating that into the application development lifecycle, integrating that into the migration lifecycle. So what I mean by that is, when I'm planning to develop an application or migrate an application, what does that target cloud architecture look like? What does that target architecture cost? What sizing do we think we need from an infrastructure perspective to fit the workload? Then once that workload is in production, right, let's take another look at it. And this needs to be a continuous exercise. The key is, optimization is not a one-time occurrence. It is a continuous exercise. So we need to look at that workload in production and look at the opportunities to right-size it once again. And then once that application reaches maturity, we can even do things like take advantage of prepaying for resources. So if we know something has 50% utilization of a certain EC2 type, let's say on Amazon, we know that we can prepay for that resource, and we can, have a price that is up to 75% less than what we're paying on demand. So really integrating FinOps into the entire life cycle of application development and migration is key.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, you've really hit most things. The thing I want to just, again, double tap on this is that the culture of being open to doing it different than how we've done it and how they've done it. That's the biggest piece on the optimization aspect of it is, it's looking at how to approach both the technology and the procurement and the financing differently in order to get hopefully better results or definitely better results.
Well, and your remark on culture there kind of leads in nicely to my next question for you. So if we imagine that we're talking to a federal agency that's sort of just getting underway with its cloud journey, do you have recommendations that you provide to them sort of for laying out the foundation for a successful cloud transformation? It sounds like culture is part of that, but I imagine there are other things too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take this one, Brandon. So, one of the first building blocks that we talk to customers about is one, right, understanding cloud and educating stakeholders on cloud and its potential benefits. The next important part we really talked about is initially we really need to get that cloud center of excellence in place. Who are the appropriate stakeholders across the business side of the mission and the technology side of the mission that need to be aligned and in place to help support this cloud strategy? Once that CCOE is in place, we want to do things like document the cloud vision and strategy, right? And that strategy needs to be mission driven, not platform or technology driven. And then the next piece is really understanding from a business and technology standpoint, how ready is this customer to go to cloud? So we do things like cloud readiness assessments, right? To look at what resources do you have in the organization? What's your level of understanding of cloud? What are your technical skills related to cloud? What processes do you have in place around automation, et cetera? What existing investments do you have to manage that in cloud environment, et cetera? And we come to a readiness assessment and a roadmap of their strengths and their weaknesses, and a roadmap of what needs to be accomplished before they even think about, starting their first project in cloud. And then the next thing we do is we take a look at, what are all those applications that live in the data center, the edge, commercial colo, et cetera, that might be candidates for cloud. And so we help our customers, look at that portfolio and determine what's right for a cloud environment. We look at the target architecture. We look at what's that ongoing cost going to be, and help that customer accelerate their migration strategy. So those are some of the foundational, elements of a cloud journey that we help customers with.
Yeah, I think to add to that, often the first use cases agencies try to look at are, everybody's favorite term, that low-hanging fruit, and those don't always end up being the best ones to start with. So it is having that methodical approach, understanding what is actually the best use case to start with. It might be more complex. It may not be that low-hanging fruit. It might be something that requires a little bit more effort and energy in order to prove the success of it, prove that adoption out. And then to start looking at some of those easier use cases. So this is one of those ones where don't just go with what's easy, go with what makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay, last question. I'd love to hear from both of you on this. So if you look ahead the next several years, what trends or technologies do you anticipate will have the biggest impact on cloud adoption among federal agencies as they continue to kind of move forward with these efforts?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. Obviously, AI, Gen AI is all the rage. I mean, that's a given. I think from a cloud adoption, where I'm the most excited or getting pretty excited to see some adoption is some of the edge technologies, moving those types of AI solutions, the Gen AI, moving the decisions out to the edge to be able to make faster decisions in the field, at the agencies, all those types of things. And that edge will look different depending on the agency. Whether it's a postal service and that edge is in a vehicle, or if it's something else, like whatever that looks like. So I think that edge compute and moving those AI solutions out to the edge is going to be massive from that standpoint. So that's probably the one I'm the most excited about. Mm-hmm. We can't go without saying AI. So obviously AI is a close two.
So some of the areas I'm seeing that are driving cloud adoption. The first I mentioned a little bit earlier, which is CSPs used to focus on their IaaS layer. There's a much more laser focus on platform as a service and software as a service. And these are driving adoption because these are becoming more use case focused. They're becoming more vertically focused. So as we see more innovation from cloud providers, we're seeing a lot more interest in this PaaS and SaaS layer that CSPs are offering. And Gen AI falls into that bucket, by the way. The other area is what I'll call hybrid cloud solutions. So Brandon had said edge earlier, but what's really exciting is that the cloud providers are really democratizing, if you will, or dispersing their cloud capabilities, right? So you no longer have to move your data into the cloud to take advantage of cloud innovation. We're seeing really innovative solutions from our CSP partners. And these are both connected solutions where there's capabilities on the edge, and you can also bring that data back into the cloud mothership or nearest cloud region. But we're also seeing air-gapped, truly air-gapped solutions in cloud. So our high-class customers who have very sensitive data and not looking to move that data beyond their boundaries, they can now take advantage of cloud innovation. And we're not just talking infrastructure and containers, we're talking about AI capabilities and other platform capabilities. So this is truly exciting, and I can't wait to see what our CSP partners are going to bring to the market next.
Well, excellent, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Brandon, Ryan, thanks for being here today.
Yep. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you for joining us as well. This is, one episode in several we have about federal agencies and how they're approaching different technology topics. That and much, much more is out on WWT.com. You've got a great catalog of video you can watch anytime and a calendar of stuff that's coming up. Love to hear your feedback, so take that survey if you get it, or just drop us an email and let us know how we did today. And with that, we will wrap today's session, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for coming.